Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fierce and Fabulous Society talk show that is here every single Tuesday at 7 p.m., bringing you some of the most inspirational and impactful and just plain ordinary in the most wondrous way women in business from across our amazing world. And today's episode actually is a really special one because this episode is also linked to the Fierce and Fabulous Society Women in Business Growth Summit 2021 that has been taking place all of last week. And we are now working together to help all of the delegates that attended that workshop, attended that summit, to be putting all their learning into action in the most incredible way. And we are bringing in today's amazing businesswoman as part of that to share her experiences with all of us on that journey. So you will be able to join the Fierce and Fabulous Society to see even more about our guest today, but you will also be able to see her here as part of the talk show, which is a double whammy for everyone. So today I am so delighted to be able to introduce to you quite an incredible woman that in many ways I feel like I've known her for, well, since about 2017, 2018, but it was only this year that I actually got to meet her. And her name is Ruth Bazi, and she is the founder of This Is My Era. She is also the founder of the Amani Hope Foundation. I'm going to let her explain to you what that actually means, because it's a not-for-profit organisation that does really impactful work. And she is coming to us to share with us today more about the work she does with This Is My Era and her not-for-profit, and sharing how we can have, not just me, not just her, but you too can have impact in this world together. So a big welcome, everyone, to Ruth Bazi, who the founder of This Is My Era. Ruth, I am
Hi.
so delighted to have you in the room today.
Thank
And
you for having me.
oh, really, because everybody, I have been, myself and my husband Paul have been using, actually, I meant to have, where is it? It's always in my drawer and I bet it's not there. This Is My Era. Oh, yay. We have been using these in our business
Yeah.
since about, I think it's about 2018.
Mhm.
And never really thought much about it. We use them with all of our clients. We've used them with all of our staff to be able to keep strategy alive and on a daily basis and keep us focused and performing well and feeling good. And then this year I got the chance to actually meet you, which
Yeah.
was really impactful.
Yeah.
So Ruth, I could start gabbing on, but I'm going to give my little voice a rest and ask you to just introduce yourself to everybody here.
Yeah, of course. And thank you just to start off for having me. And like Marianne said, my name is Ruth. I am the co-founder of This Is My Era and also the Amani Hope Foundation. I A lot of the work that I do, I like to call it the behind the scenes, because most of the stuff up front, my husband and co-founder Kuda does that, because I prefer he be in the front and whoever works behind is really in charge when you think about it, because it takes me for everything that you see to be executed well. So if I don't do my job well, he doesn't do it well. So I run the show a
Yeah,
little bit. But
yeah,
so yeah, like Marianne said, we do have our main product is really this 90-day planner or book, which initially started as a project for family and friends, because when you find something that works, or when you create something that works, you just want to share it with others. And
Yeah.
we had been, Kuda and I designed this actually on an Excel spreadsheet, because
Wow.
we couldn't find any kind of planner that worked for us. So we're like, why don't we just design what our ideal planner would look like? So we did that, and we started using it amongst ourselves in our business. And we started just seeing a lot of change and growth and shifts. And friends and family were asking, what are you guys doing? We're like, well, we could share the spreadsheet with you. So we just started emailing the spreadsheet to people, and they started seeing improvements in their productivity, time management, really prioritizing. And we thought, oh, wait a minute, maybe we're onto something. um, and um, yeah, and we decided to put it together, package it in a way that will make it accessible to everybody else. And really, how This Is My Era officially started, it was a song and a speech. So it actually
Wow.
was not this. This Is
Wow.
My Era was a song and a speech, that Kuda gave, and one of his close friends, Alexander Starr, who is an artist, sang a song called This Is My Era. They used to travel around schools, colleges, businesses, giving the speech about, making it your era now. So basically, this is my era, that time acronym, right? The TIM, that right now is the time for you to focus and invest in yourself, but also in your community. You don't have to wait until you've made millions and millions of dollars or pounds in your case, to be able to start doing something that leaves a lasting and positive legacy. And at the end of every speech, people would come up to us and they're like, oh, I have this idea, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I just don't know where to start. And the first question would always ask them is, okay, well, what's the goal?
Yeah.
And most people are like, what do you mean goal? Well, like, well, you have this idea, but what is the goal of the idea? What do you want the idea to do at the end of it all? What is the thing that you're trying to achieve with this idea? And
Yeah.
most people just stared like, we don't know. And that's when it really clicked. We're like, well, remember that product that we've been using? Why don't we just, put it into something that is printable and easily? And then this is how this came about. So we actually did not
Wow.
set out to create it for the masses. We set out to create it for just the two of us and in our business.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know the way I love, because actually, folks, before we came live today, and I was just checking in to make sure that I got some of the facts right. Because when you've been working with something for such a long time, you can make some assumptions. And Ruth said to me, well, this is my era. The acronym of that is time. I've been using this for years and hadn't even thought about that, but of course it is. And I loved, you gave me a beautiful narrative around how you describe the value of this book, because let's face it, we can go on Amazon, um, which I've done a lot when it comes to
Yes.
and that is actually, this is a funny bit, that's how actually me and Ruth connected,
Hmm.
because they noticed, like, who is this Scottish woman who is buying so many of these blooming books?
Yep.
And that's how it started. But anyway, your narrative around it was beautiful, because you said to me, it's all about you. It's a way to empower people to step into their potential by investing in themselves.
Yeah.
Now, for me, that is such an empowering statement, especially when we're talking about planners that we can go on Amazon. And even just now, because we're in the lead up to Christmas, everybody and their dog is creating a planner, to
Yep.
stick it onto Amazon. And I'm not knocking it at all, but it just connected as to why we have been using this in our lives and our businesses, and
Mhm.
why we have, I mean, that's why many, 2018, 4 years now, using the same planner all of the time. And it just made me realize just how values led and shared values that we have,
Mhm.
and we didn't really realize the depth of it, because
Yeah.
this is about empowering people to step into their true potential.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you are your best self, it transitions into everything else that you do. Because, and
Yeah.
especially women and moms to be,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I think we tend to stretch ourselves so much for everybody else that sometimes you forget that, well, once you're out and let's burnt out and you're not really useful to anybody else. But the
No.
more that you invest in yourself, you're going to find that you start attracting different things into your life because you're carrying yourself differently, you're responding differently to things, you're reacting differently or being proactive differently to things. So it's all about, and as a planner user, you do know in our planner we focus on all the different areas of life. We ask people to set goals for every single area, because most of the time when a lot of us, and we can relate, when I started using, which I started using planners years ago, but
Yeah.
really the goal was always either it was a career goal or financial focus, right? So we set goals for our career, we set goals for finances
Yeah,
and
yeah.
health, right? Because you always want to lose weight for some reason. um, but I don't know a lot of people that will set family goals and social goals and spiritual
Yeah.
goals. I never really, in conversations with people, every time I was like, hey, what's your number one goal? It was always either business related or financial related. It was
Yeah.
never, my goal is to really allocate time to spend with my kids and get to know what makes them tick. I was like, oh, nobody ever talks about family goals and all these things.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was one of the biggest focus for me, was like, we have to make sure when we're preparing this that we focus on every single thing that makes us a full person. So we like to say here, so one of the things that we say is that it's not about personal development, it's about a whole person development. Because when you
Yeah.
say personal development, it's like you're looking at an area. But if we talk about your whole person development, we're looking at everything that makes you who you are. And that includes your family, that includes your social life,
Completely.
that includes your business, it includes spiritual, and my personal favorite, fun. It includes
Oh,
fun.
completely.
You have to plan for
Completely.
fun. And, if vacation for you is fun, most people can't just pick up and go on vacation. You have to plan it, right?
Yeah.
Set time aside and all of this. So it's setting goals for all these different things. And we realize if you're able to invest time, even if it's, 10% here and there in every single area, you're going to find that you're less burnt out, you're less frustrated, less overwhelmed, and you like to be around people more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think when people think about business, they can be very transactional in their thoughts.
Mm,
And this is where they start business on the wrong foot, because it's very easy. You jump into business and you get into the doing of it
yeah.
very quickly without even taking a moment to think about the being of it.
Mm,
And I know that because one of the biggest reasons that women enter into an entrepreneurial life and take that step is because they are so desperate for more flexibility in their
yeah.
life. They're so desperate for that, that work-life balance that we're all chasing. And I'll say to clients, for me, work-life balance isn't a thing. We have a finite amount of time,
Mm,
which is our greatest and most precious asset.
yeah.
And we make choices every single day about how we use it. And therefore, when you're thinking about starting a business, it's looking at that whole system. And one of the first tasks I'll do with my clients is say, what are your non negotiables before we start
Hmm.
anything? And it might be, I always want to be able to pick the kids up on a Friday from school. I mean, that's a non negotiable. It doesn't matter what happens, that's going to inform your decisions about your business, because
Yeah.
that's something that is just one of your stakes in the ground. Or it could be that you're always going to have allocate time to exercise, or you're
Mhm.
always going to have so many holidays a year, whatever it is. But this is the whole system of living. Because what's the point, Ruth, of doing all that work if you're not going to have fun and happiness?
Yeah.
What's the point of it?
Yeah,
Do you
we
know?
don't want an unhappy millionaire or billionaire, right? What's the point?
No. All you have
And
to
there are
do is
lots of
switch
those out
on.
there.
Absolutely. Switch on the telly, Google it, and what do we see? Really famous people with an abundance of financial wealth
Yeah.
in rehab centres with
Hmm.
significant mental health problems that have not had the money side bring the happiness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people say to me, is it really, but you need to be able to sacrifice everything to be able to have a successful business. And I says, well, if you sacrifice everything, you're guaranteed not to have a successful business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the era books for us, and we can talk as people who have used them for 4 years, because folks, the books themselves are um, they're for 90 days, and that's a really important thing for us. It's not that we choose not to have year big planning books, but these are things that I said to Ruth the first time I met her, and she says, what was it you like about them? And I said, well, number one, they come in really amazing colours and they feel like, let's get the important stuff out the road, and never get rid of your rose gold one or your yellow one, because they're my favourites. Secondly, they're a great size to fit in my handbag,
Hmm.
so that they're really, and they're not too big to have on my desk and take up space. So that was a really practical thing.
Yeah.
But what we teach, and I teach my clients, and I'm working with my staff, and the practice we use ourselves, is that a book really does only last 90 days with us. It doesn't last 12 months because,
Hmm.
like with anything, trying to get setting goals and planning into to become a habit in your life that you prioritize and value is simple, but it's not easy.
Oh, yeah.
And and it takes time. And I see people falling down using planners because they have a great intention, they get all filled in and they've got it there, and day one goes well, day two goes well, day three goes well, day four, oh, we missed that, and then we missed day five because I went out for dinner and I forgot, then I slept in on day six. And what they do is when they pick it back up 3 weeks later, they they just go to the next page on it. What we do is, if I've missed 6 days, I score out the pages, Ruth. I
Hmm.
score out the pages, and I try to remember what is it that didn't happen that day that stopped me from being
Hmm.
able to use this, because there is learning in the gaps.
Yeah.
So at the end of a 90 day, if I've only got a third of that book filled in, what is it I need to start to change to reduce that for the next 90 days?
Hmm.
Now, if I didn't do that, that book could have lasted me a year and I learned nothing. I
Yeah.
have no idea why I haven't filled it in.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the times too, the misconception or the mistake most people do is they like to think that once you write and fill everything out, you've done the work. That's not even it. That's like
No.
the lowest hanging fruit. It's
Mhm.
the little things that you do every single day. And one of the things that we implement in here is like we make people break down their action steps. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. You're going to have to take one tiny step every single day. That's where the rubber meets the road, where when you actually execute
Mhm.
on this whole plan, because you could plan for days, and a lot of people plan, and I know there's research that says about 92 people set goals, but about 8% are successful in actually achieving the goals. It's
Yeah.
because these eight are actually doing the things that they want to do, and the rest of us are just writing out what we want, and
Yeah.
we're writing it out in a way that just does not make it motivating enough. It doesn't just make it exciting. It doesn't want you to wake up and you know gets you excited to wake up, so you're like, all right, I'm going to work towards my goals, right? So
Absolutely.
it's really, the writing it down is beautiful. You're like, oh yeah, I did a great job, I filled everything out.
Yeah.
But it's really the taking the steps to make sure that everything you've written down is happening. That's where the work
Absolutely.
is, and that's
It's
where
all a
most people don't do.
process, isn't it? It's this process that you're trying
Yeah.
to build of. Do you know, because I know that there's some things that, like on each page for each day, there is an affirmation. Now,
Yeah.
it's not to say, and there's also a space to write your own affirmation for the
Yeah.
day. And I'll often talk to clients about when is the best time to be able to manifest in the best way, do you know? And from if it's definitely in the mornings or at nights, because
Yeah.
in the morning and at night is when your consciousness starts to close down a bit, and your subconscious, you can have more of an influence on it because your conscious levels, it's like the guards down. Do you know,
Hmm.
it's like the guards falling asleep at the gate, and that subconscious access can be made at that time. That's a bit like when, do you know, if you ever wake up in the morning and your alarm goes off and the radio's playing and it's some random song, but you find yourself all during the day humming the damn
That
song,
song. Yeah.
you know, and you're doing it, and you're suddenly, you catch yourself, and you think, what am I doing? I don't even like that. It's been because when you wake in the morning, your subconscious is still down. Your consciousness is still down at that time as you're kind of just waking up, and your subconscious is so open to influence.
Hmm.
So I do a lot of the work with This Is My Era in the morning and in the evening. And then the bit in between is really my active application and monitoring of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's 90 days, because you talked about small steps, even the 90 days, it's like your 5 year down to your year, down to your 90 day,
Hmm.
down to your month, down to your week, down to your day.
Days. Hmm.
And it just takes all those steps. Um, and as I say, it fits in my handbag, Ruth, because it's
Yeah.
a living document,
Yeah.
a living document.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you also talked about, even the execution and the five, the three, the one. And one other thing too is that you also have to remember your 5 year goal. When you drop it down, when you get into the one, you actually realize what's in the five, you probably didn't want it, right?
Yeah,
Because you had this long list. But then when you start to narrow it down to your 1 year goal, to the 90 days, you realize, oh, well, that one's not actually that important. It doesn't need to be there. Or you
yeah,
start to realize that if I achieve number three on this, 5 year goal, it actually ties into number five, because most of
yeah,
the time our goals are tied into each other.
yeah,
If your goal is, buying the ideal house, and you're like, all right, I want to be debt free, that's another goal. Well, we realize goal, which one is important, which one you're going to start with. You're like, all right, being debt free, because then that translates into you being able to afford the house. Then you realize, oh, these goals go hand in hand. So it's all about, when you break it down, you start to see how they tie into each other, and makes it easier for you to accomplish multiple goals in one when you think about it.
absolutely. And I think I'll often talk about my magic C word, you know, and everybody, and it's a laugh because, I mean, Fierce and Fabulous Society abbreviates down to FFS, do you know, which is a little bit of a giggle. But the magic C word, and people think, oh my goodness, what's she going to talk about now? But that's about things being consistently done. Consistency is the magic C word.
Oh yeah.
And this book helps you to consistently take those small steps,
Hmm.
and also helps you to tap into happiness, because happiness can only be tapped into when you actually have experiences that allow you to feel happy. And if you're not able to celebrate the success and acknowledge and be aware of all the little things that you're doing that are amazing, what you end up doing is creating a 5 year goal, and you just keep looking at it like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, thinking,
Yep.
you know, I'm
Yep.
still not there. I'm still not there. I'm still not there. I'm rubbish. I'm still not there. Whereas if you've started with your end in mind, a nice Covey
Hmm.
statement, but start with that end in mind. And then what you're working on, that tiny thing today, you know, is aligned to that big thing to take you that
Yeah.
little step there. You can celebrate everything that keeps your Do you know, you're keeping your experiences positive, you're keeping your happiness up, you're keeping your motivation going.
Yeah.
And that's where success lies.
Mm.
And it's just one of these beautiful tools to do that. Um,
And I
yeah.
also think on that line of like where success lies, one of my one of my favorite speakers, Tony Robbins, and a lot of
Oh,
other successful people. But I've heard the saying that success leaves clues. So
yeah.
if you look at all these successful people, and if you study a lot of successful people, you realize there's a blueprint. There's always clues as to things that have been done. So for people that if you have like this big, hairy, audacious goal, but there's that fear and you just stare at that goal and the year goes by and nothing's been done, nothing's been done.
Yeah.
What I have been doing that I found has been helpful is I try to look for somebody who's achieved that goal that I want. And then
Yeah.
I model their
Yeah.
success, whatever they
Yeah.
did, because I'm like, they did this and ended up here. I didn't know what to do to end up here, but if they did this and got here,
Yeah.
my probability of doing the same thing to get here is probably higher than it was when the goal was just sitting on the shelf. So when they say success
Absolutely.
leaves clues, it's going back and seeing who's that person that's done what I want to do.
Yeah.
Now, what then do your research. What did they do to get there? And then see if you can just model those things. Because when you model, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing, but modeling, you're slowly starting to see that change and you're slowly starting to see that shift. And modeling behaviors can go both ways, right? You can model negative behavior. Kids are good
Totally.
at modeling your parents. So it
Yeah.
works because when you look at children and they model things that parents do, and other kids do, it's something that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll often say to clients, do you know, I says, when they're saying to me, I can't do that, do you know, there's no way I can do that for whatever reason. And I'll ask them, do you believe that in the whole of history as we know it, over all of those, I mean, hundreds of thousands of years, can you honestly tell me, do you think there's been one person who isn't as smart as you, who
Mm,
isn't experienced as you, who has managed to do it? And the answer is yes.
yeah.
Okay, then. Okay. So somebody who isn't as smart, isn't as experienced as you, has done it. So what is it that's stopping you from doing it now then? And you think, oh, okay. Just another one of those things to think about that helps you to take that little step forward. Do you
Yeah.
know, this is just like the biggest subject, isn't it? And it's actually a big subject because it's at the core of what we're doing. And I know that one of the things that we really is reflected in us when we fill in our journals, this is your era planners, is our values are very strongly reflected in the goals that we set and the actions
Oh,
that
yeah.
we take and the decisions that we make. And that's why this stuff is a huge topic, a huge topic. And so it's amazing just to be able to sit here and speak to you after 4 years. How cool is that? How cool is that?
And I
And
mean, decisions are also based on two things, right? Pleasure or pain.
yeah,
Ultimately, it comes down
yeah,
to just those two, pleasure or
yeah,
pain. What pleasure are you going to get from making that decision to take those steps to execute your goals? And
yeah,
then the other thing is, what pain are you trying to avoid
yeah,
from taking these steps? So most of the time, if you want to, start a business, but you're procrastinating and pushing it back, are the decisions you're making out of fear and out of pain? And that could be the fact that you're wondering, perhaps I'm going to get rejected. My family or friends are going
yeah,
to think this is a dumb idea. It's not going to work. So you start thinking about all of these, things that are just going to cause you pain. So that way you're going to avoid that decision. Where alternatively, if you thought about the pleasurable part of, all right, if I'm able to accomplish this goal, I can do this. I can take care of my
yeah,
family. I can go on this vacation I've always dreamed about. I can do all of this. When your decision is based out of that aspect of pleasure, you're more than likely to take steps to get things done when you're running towards
totally.
something versus running away from it, right?
Yeah. Because we tend to default towards looking at the negatives of everything. That's what we do naturally as human beings. So we'll say, well, what is the risks involved in taking that step?
Yeah.
Rather than thinking, well, what is the impact of not taking it?
Yeah.
Do you know? What is the impact of not taking this instead?
Yeah.
And it is just, I'll always say to people, it's about raising. The other thing that the planner does for us is that people like to say, oh, I do plan. How many times have you heard this, Ruth? Oh, yeah, yeah, I've got lots of goals and everything. Okay, show me them. Oh, I haven't written, I haven't written them down. I'm good at, I hold them in my head. And I'll say, no, if your head's anything like mine's, if I hold stuff in my head for too long, it becomes like a woman's giant black shopping bag. Do you know those ones where you
Like you
think,
find everything in there,
and
right?
find nothing at the same time? Do you know? It's just doing
Yep.
this with it. And that's what it becomes. And it's that different level of intelligence it's activated
Hmm.
through just the process of writing something down onto paper and being able to see it with your own eyes
Hmm.
does activate a deeper level of intelligence and can activate a deeper level of understanding. Because the amount of times I've had a great idea, I've been holding it in my shopping bag, it's been rattling about with my lipstick for ages. I then get to go, right, I'm going to put all this down. And actually, I get rid of most of it. Because once I see it, I think, oh, that's not important. And yet I've been carrying that crap along in my head
Yeah.
for all of that time. So certainly for us, our morning routines are really strongly guided with this is my era.
Hmm.
And I have my yoga in the morning. After the yoga, I then sit down with my cup of tea and I've got my music that's on. And I just take the moment to be present as to what I'm going to do today. I've done other things on a Sunday night when I've looked forward to my week and
Yeah.
started putting in key events, do you know? So everything that we do with the books won't do it for you. It's like when I do a presentation and workshops. And I was doing that on the Women in Business Summit all this week. I would say, you know, turning up here will give you lots of information that
Hmm.
is amazing, and I can guarantee that. But what I cannot guarantee is transformation because that lies completely with you
Yeah.
and what you do here and now in this summit, and then the action you take to put your learning into place in your life after
Practice.
it.
Yeah.
That's where it lies. So this is my era. I ain't going to do it, folks. For you, it's not like Harry Potter's magic book. You know,
That would be nice if it was.
that would be. It doesn't come with your own wand. Do you know? And as Ruth saying, the writing's one thing, but you have to be reflecting and using it every day, saying, "Did I put this into action?
Hmm.
Did, and if I didn't, that's okay, as long as I learn why I didn't and
Yeah.
make a
Yeah.
change so it doesn't happen another day." And it's just wonderful. Now, I know that is only, and I'm saying only because I know you've just went into Australia and everything with it. So there's no only, this is global, but I know that you have, that's one thing, one way that you can support people to have greater impact in the world. And it's one way that you are having impact in the world, you and your husband, um, and doing it together. But we also have the Amani Hope Foundation. So it'd be lovely to hear, Ruth, as to how that fits in with everything. And what
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Ghana, which is in West Africa, and my husband is from Zimbabwe, which is on the south side. And for both of us, we both don't come from, didn't come from wealthy families or anything, but what we did have was the opportunity to have an education. And for a lot of, you know, Africans, and a lot of not just Africans, but people within the lower class community, there's not a lot of access to things. But when you really
Yeah.
look into Africa, um, public education or state education is not free like it is in
Mhm.
certain places. So if your family is making an average of $3 or £3 a day, education is the last thing on your mind,
Yeah.
especially if you have, and the other thing too is most families have multiple kids. A lot of
Yeah.
African families, you're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. I'm seven of seven kids, by the way.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, and so with an income like that, education is really the last thing on your mind for your
Yeah.
kids. What you're focused on are the primary needs, right? The physical needs. It's food, water, shelter. Those come first. Everything else is second class because those are not important. And most of the time, your kids are part of the process to bring food home. So you will find kids in the markets, kids as young as 5, 6, 7,
Wow.
selling on the streets in the market with their parents or either on their own. So for us, we kind of saw those growing up, and we always knew that for us, education was really the way out.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to then, go through school and then come to America to go to university. And similar to my husband as well, he actually came to America with $40 in his pocket. That was it. Just
Wow.
$40 and a dream. So imagine leaving your
Wow.
family, everything behind, and you land at Heathrow with 40 pounds, and that's it.
Wow.
And he gets to university, and your first year is paid off, so you have some scholarships. But the thing with scholarships is it needs to be renewed every year, and there's certain criteria that you have to meet to renew them every
Yeah.
year. So we have to learn to be resourceful, right? How then can you get through the first year, and then the second, and then 4 years of school, and if you want to do a master's program and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So for both of us, it was very education focused. But we always knew that whatever we wanted to do, we wanted to give back to our homes. Now, because we're both from separate parts of the continent, we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out, well, because the argument was, well, you want to help your country, I want to help my country. uh, who goes first? Because we were just starting out, bootstrapping it with our own investment, and we're like, who goes first? Like, which country is more important? So that was a conversation we just kept going back and forth, back and forth. But we just always knew that whatever business we went into, there has to be an impact
Yeah.
attached to it, or else we wouldn't do it. So any business that I'm involved in, any businesses that my husband is involved in, which we are involved in multiple, there's always something that we do to give
Yeah.
back. And so
Yeah.
for This Is My Era, through the Amani Hope Foundation, which is our charity of our nonprofit, we educate children in Africa. So we provide scholarships and school supplies for them to go to school. But
Wow.
our main focus, we like to focus on the forgotten children, because
Yeah.
there's so many other organizations in the world, these big, well-established organizations that, come in and build schools and do all these things, but they're really not as focused on the forgotten kids like we are.
Yeah.
Because you never know, the next president could be in this orphanage that
Yeah.
nobody is paying attention to. So a lot of our students are actually from families where either they're orphans, so both parents are gone. They live with their grandparents, or a parent is disabled, and the kids are basically the breadwinners of the family. So
Yeah.
we come in, and we like to take it a little bit further. We get to know the families, we understand their situation. In certain instances, we've actually gone as far as buying groceries and things for the
Yeah.
family so the kids can go to school.
Wow.
Because if the kid is responsible to go to the market and sell tomatoes or whatever it is they need to
Yeah.
sell, and bring back $2 at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're like, well, if we can remove that barrier, then give you the food and things you need, can we then take that child to school?
Yeah. Wow.
So in certain families like that, those are some of the kids that we were providing education for. And for me, that's really what gets me up in the morning, because being in business is difficult. It's extremely
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to have something besides passion. I always tell people passion is good, it gets you going. But
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
some point, does your passion change? It could. But what is
Yeah.
that one thing that is never going to change? And for me, that's impact. because if I
Yeah.
know there's a child relying on me in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like doing anything today. And then I think about that child, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute. That kid
Yeah.
is relying on me. Even if I don't want to do anything today, could I at least invest 2 hours that will push the needle a little bit so this kid can have that?
Mm,
And that for me
totally.
is really what gets me up. And we've sent so far a little over 100 kids to school, but there's always one child that sticks with you. And
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
it was one of the ones who was the breadwinner of her family, and we met her when she was 12. And at 12 years old, she had never seen what a classroom looked like. She's never been inside a classroom. So she was a 12-year-old in grade one.
Wow.
So, but that also comes with
Wow.
challenges because she's the oldest in a class with 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. So there was also that stigma. So
Yeah.
in addition to taking her to school for the first time at the age of 12, we were also providing after school tutoring sessions. And some of these we were paying personally because they weren't part of our program. So
Yeah.
as we get to know the families, we're like, oh, wait a minute. We need to provide this, we need to do this, we need to do that.
Mm.
And so yeah, there are certain instances where we provide extra tutoring services because we know the kids that we encounter, either they're in an orphanage or they've never been to school before, and they could be 10, 12, and they're going into class one or
Yeah.
learning from scratch
Wow.
how to read and write. And so for us, that was really our focus, right? Those kids that were forgotten in a sense, and that's really the impact of the Amani Hope Foundation. So in addition to scholarships, we also give them school supplies. And when we started, this is my era. So for every planet that was sold, we would give a stationery kit to school,
Yeah.
to a kid to go to school. And in there, so those the basic things that most kids take for granted when you go to school: pens, pencils, and all these incredible things that you could find lying around the house.
Yeah.
But most of these kids didn't have any of those.
Yeah.
Um, During our time with them, we had learned one school that the kids were going to, kids were actually writing in the sand.
Wow.
And we didn't know that. And that's another thing, too, when you go into a community, you realize you come in with this idea of what you know here and assuming that it'll translate exactly in another country. And it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
So learning that kids are writing in the sand, we're like, well, after school, how do they do their homework? How do they retain this
Yeah.
information? How do they revise these information?
Yeah, yeah.
So that also helped us change what we were giving them, because before it
Yeah.
was just the basics of pen, pencils, and all that. Because we assumed, there's books and papers and things that can write.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
We realized
uh-huh.
there wasn't.
But
So
they're
now
not any
we
good if you've only got the sand to write on.
Right. So now we started having to
Mhm.
add in exercise books and notebooks and all these things. So it just kind
Wow.
of started growing from there. So initially, we had a student in Ghana. We were focused in Ghana. We had students in Tanzania. So we're mostly in Africa. And kids in Zimbabwe. But the struggle for us being here in America and everybody that we're helping
Yeah.
in on a different continent, we realized we had to have a system or a team in place somewhere that we knew that the money that we were sending, the stationery kit, everything that we were doing is actually going to where it needs to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Now, one thing we did that was really good is that for the school fees and everything, we paid directly to the schools. So we never actually gave it to the orphanage or anybody to pay it,
Yeah.
because that was the way to avoid any misuse of the
Yeah.
funds. So we would reach out to the school exactly. It would be like, all right, how many of our kids do you have? If they have 5 of our kids, all right, how much does it cost to take these 5 to school for
Yeah.
a year? And the surprising thing, a lot of the times, when we'll tell friends here, would ask them, hey, how much do you think it costs to send a child in Africa
Yeah.
to school for a year? And most of the people here, but oh, $30,000,
Yeah.
$20,000. And I'd be like, no, $250. And most of my friends, people are always so surprised. They're like, wait, what? Somebody spends that at a meal, or you spend that shopping.
Absolutely.
And that's education for a child for a year. And so once
Um,
you put those also into perspective, you start to realize how everything is just so different. So for us
mhm.
being able to then pay directly to the school, we knew, okay, the kids are covered, and then transition into all the different areas. But it was definitely challenging to be able to do it from here. So we then started focusing primarily in Zimbabwe, because
Yeah,
that's where we were then able to build a team that we trusted and knew.
yeah.
Because then
Wow.
it's, you also have to be very careful where your money goes and all these things. You have to put that into consideration. So we then transitioned to just focus mainly in Zimbabwe, and yeah, so that's the part of
Wow.
the impact aspect. Yeah.
Wow. But how important is that? And I think it's really just an amazing example of how ordinary people, once they've connected into what is right for you, do you know, what is that fueling why and purpose for you,
Hmm.
can really have an impact on the lives of so many others. And it doesn't mean that we all have to go out and be putting money to lots of different organizations or trying to save everybody at the same time. But if each of us, even on your example, Ruth, do you know, because what, $250, you're under £10 a month here.
Hmm.
£10 a month. Do you know, people would spend more than that on a lunchtime at McDonald's,
Yeah.
you know, just for a snack. So when people say to me, "Oh well, I'm not at that stage yet to be able to give because things are really tight," it's actually when you look when you if you were really connected to the cause, to be able to create the capacity to be able to give that amount, and at the end of every year that you were in business, to say that I have helped 10 children
Mhm.
go to school. 10
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
those 10 children go on to further education, that they
Exactly.
then have they have children of their own, and it's that ripple effect,
Yeah.
all because you gave that £10 in that month. And
Yeah.
that's all, you know, it's nothing huge, but we all have the capacity to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We
And
all
you
do.
change a story. You change the whole course of somebody's life by just that
Totally.
decision. And we have students now that are getting into university, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
one of those you don't realize. You're like, wait a minute, we came to you when you were just going into grade one, and now you're
Yeah.
graduating high school.
It's
It's incredible.
amazing.
It's
That's
just
amazing.
yeah.
I know that actually one of the big factors, one of the huge things that made the era-book something that really hooked us, was because of the contribution side of it.
Yeah.
Because we knew, and I know that in my business, we've also got Masami Sato, who is the founder of B1G1 organisation, and we've supported that for a number of years. Um, because for every client that we come in, if the client, say, has a real passion around women, if they have a real passion in sustainability, we can actually make a contribution to something that means something to them
Yeah.
from them coming on to work with us. It's that giving back.
Hmm.
Giving back. And very often, many of my clients will also give the equal contribution too.
Yeah.
Just because they go, "Oh God, that's amazing. Oh, thanks for doing that. Can I do it as well?"
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have to ask
Absolutely. And
anything.
it's beautiful. And a lot of the times we've also had customers that have said that to us too. They're like, I could have bought any book, any planner, but it was the impact that I read that
Yeah,
really made me want to get yours, because I know it's a continuous cycle, because this is going to empower me personally, but
yeah.
I'm also then extending impacting a child somewhere.
Ugh, it's
And we're like,
huge.
that is the truth. It's basically a gift that keeps on giving, because this purchase, which is 20 something dollars, pounds, but when you think about that donation that has been made, that's priceless, because a child's
Absolutely.
education, a child's changed course of life, is worth more than $20 or 20 pounds, you
Absolutely.
know?
It's not even £20 here, it's 17.99 from
17.
Amazon.
Yeah,
And sometimes you can get it for 16.99, and if you
there
buy
you
it in bulk,
go.
it's even less.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and
it's
it's
for that small amount of money. I know that for the summit is supporting children's, disadvantaged children, a lot of projects across the world. It's an easy give to make, a really, really easy gift to make. And I think the whole point of bringing yourself in, Masami in, is just to heighten the awareness of everybody that normal people, normal women. I mean, that story for you and your husband, do you know, just you weren't multimillionaires when you started doing this. It was quite the opposite. You started doing this first, and then everything else is kind of building around it
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's come from that source.
and it's we like to and that's the part where success really meets that fulfillment aspect,
Yeah.
because if you're not fulfilled in what you're doing, then why are you doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
Because Tony Robbins likes to say, the ultimate failure in life is success without fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that is so true. Like you
So
said, there's
true.
so many celebrities out there that have all this money in the world, but are so
Yeah.
unhappy, are so unfulfilled, and all that aspect. And for us, we knew that impact is what brings us fulfillment. And we love entrepreneurship, we love business, but we're like, all right, how can we do it in a way that, keeps us fulfilled, keeps us happy, in the spot where it's like that purpose that you found it, and you're able to marry that purpose with a business, and it's doable, right? It's Kuda likes to call it the
Amazing.
purposepreneur.
Yeah, I love
So being
that.
an
Love
entrepreneur is
it.
like the purposepreneur, right? Where you marry that purpose with the business solution that you're providing to the world. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, when you're gone from this world, what are people going to remember you by? Is it, oh yeah, he was a millionaire, it was cool? Or was it what he did with his money, the impact, the fulfillment that was done with that? That's really, the thing that for me keeps me excited
Yeah.
about this, keeps me going. And it's always like, all right, what's the next product? And what else can we do? you know? So yeah.
It's such a powerful message, and that's why also Masami talking about happiness in business in the Fierce and Fabulous Society. It's just fundamental and core. And if you are driving your planning, your decision making, your actions every day from that place, they're
Hmm.
informed and they're connected, and you feel the joy from that, even in the most challenging times. And it
Yeah.
actually has always helped me that, do you know, when you have one of your worst days, when something just comes out the left wing and nearly takes your head off, and you can hardly breathe for that moment, and because the fear just hits you, we all know what that feels like. It's in those days that it gives me the strength to just breathe and go, this is going to be okay. What is this come into my life to show me, to teach me today?
Hmm.
What is it telling me that I haven't been noticing? And it's that being attached to your why, your purpose in life
Yeah.
brings that strength in those moments when, like you say, I've been on the floor in my bedroom some mornings thinking I'm too old for this and snotting like a
Yeah.
baby, on the hard days. And it's connecting into that gets my sorry ass up off the floor and gets me taking the tiniest heavy steps, but there's still steps forward.
Hmm.
So, Ruth, it has been an absolute pleasure to
Thank
speak with
you.
you today, and
Thank you.
such a powerful message. And as I said, all the summit speakers, Masami, yourself, incredible women, inspirational women, but so ordinary,
Yeah.
talented, and beautifully ordinary in
Yeah.
your unique way, and
Yeah.
humble in what you do. And it's been it's a pleasure to have you in my circles now.
No,
Um,
absolutely. Thank
oh,
you. Thank you so much.
and
And,
it's
thank you for constantly buying the planners, because we usually like to do that. We like to go through and see, and we're always like, wait, who is this person? We're like, we need to do some research and find out who this person is.
and you found me as well, and
Yeah.
that was the beautiful thing about it. And I do believe the universe does find a way to connect good people, and to have
Absolutely.
that now golden thread that connects us.
Hmm.
There's going to be a more amazing things in the future between us,
Yeah.
and I
Mm,
so know that. Um,
absolutely. And
Not knowing what at the moment doesn't matter. I just
yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
holding
I
that.
do want to say one thing too. I think for anybody listening now, sometimes when you hear our stories or stories of people, there's probably a little bit of like kind of like self-defeat in the sense of, well, I can't do that. Where do I start? What do I do? A lot of the things that we also I like to encourage people to do is that you don't have to do everything on your own. You
Oh,
don't need to do that. Like, you know, find business is all about collaboration too, right? You do want to
totally.
find that purpose, you do want to find the happiness, but you also want to collaborate. Who's doing what you would like to do, and how can you then connect your ecosystems to make sure that you develop something so beautiful? And one of the things for us is once with our with the donations and with the giving that we were doing, we realized, okay, if we want to be able to scale, for instance, we're like, all right, we need to partner with somebody. That's,
Yeah, yeah,
because we
yeah,
couldn't do it on our own because we're so small. We're still quite a small team. So basically, it's like
yeah,
I think we have about maybe 4 people on our team.
yeah, yeah,
And but then we still have this desire to do more and give back.
yeah,
And we're like, all right, so how can we do that? And we just started researching organizations that are in the regions that we work in that we could partner with. And now we've partnered with World Vision, and a
wow.
lot of people are probably familiar with World Vision,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
a global organization, and they focus on different things, right? They have sustainability, poverty, education, and all of that. And we're like, well, we can't get into all of the things that they do, but we love this aspect of their thing, which is education, which aligns with our value as a brand.
yeah.
So we just reached out to them because that's the other thing. The worst they can say is no. And you're like,
No,
all right, I
exactly.
tried. But
Yeah,
we got in contact with them, shared what we were doing. We're like, hey, we've gone up to this point and we feel like there's so much more we can do, but we don't have the infrastructure already in place. And World Vision does. They're everywhere.
yeah,
They have the
yeah,
establishment, they have the people, they have everything in place. So we're like, all right, how can we then partner so that we can expand what we're
yeah,
doing? And we were like, we only focus on education, so we can only partner with like your education sector. And we were connected with the right people. And now, for every planet that is sold, we donate to the World Vision Education Fund. And now they're also providing education and reading programs to more kids now that we couldn't then
amazing.
reach because they have the infrastructure in place to be able to reach there. And now the support is growing, and
Yeah,
it's a matter of who can you partner with, who can you collaborate with, right?
yeah.
So don't
I
be
always
afraid.
think,
You don't have to do
don't
it
be
on your own.
afraid. No. There's so many C words that just are amazing. Collaborate, community, courage,
Clarity.
connection, clarity. C words are just a passion, a complete passion of mine. And they're so powerful. And there we are. We have one conversation, one reach out, and we still don't know what the impact of all of this will be. And
Yeah.
every single one of us, every single person listening to this today, you have the ability, if you can just tap into that courage to ask the question,
Hmm.
value what your idea might be, to be able to share it. And I always say, if you think, oh, nobody will want to hear me because everybody's done this before,
Yeah.
remember that somebody on this earth was born only able to hear your voice. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter if Tony Robbins says it, or Brené Brown, or Marianne Smith, or Ruth Bazi. We could all say the same thing, but they will not truly hear it to have an impact in their life until you say it. So my view is that we all have a social responsibility
Hmm.
to share our voices with the world, ask those questions, get our ideas out there, and it's amazing what can happen. And this is just one example of it. So,
Yeah.
Ruth, Lisa, I know that this is going to be the first of, I think, many conversations over the course of the coming years. And it will be
Yes.
lovely to look back on them, I think, and go, oh God, do you remember that first one?
Yeah.
Amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today in the Fierce and Fabulous Talk Show and in the Fierce and Fabulous Society as part of the Women in Business Growth Summit and the 5-Day Accelerator. There is so much going on to support women in the Fierce and Fabulous Society community, and it's wonderful to have you part of it. And folks, for anybody who is wanting to come in and join the Fierce and Fabulous Society, all you have to do is just pop it into Facebook and it'll pop right up and you'll see me with my glasses on. But the next, we're going also, Ruth has very generously donated some of her This Is My Era books. And they are going to be given to participants over the next 5 days who are taking part in the 5-day Life and Business Accelerator Workshop series.
Mhm.
So if you're wanting to be part of that and you've got the chance to actually win one of the books and have it in your handbag, pop over to the Fierce and Fabulous Society Facebook group from the 7th through to the 12th. Oh my goodness, it's just amazing, of November. And you'll be able to see me, you'll be able to see Ruth, and I'll be showing up every single day to support you and getting you more familiar with This Is My Era. So thank you so much, Ruth, for coming on to the show
Thank you
today.
for
And
having me.
you're very welcome. And I look forward to our next conversation with the Fierce and Fabulous Talk Show. And
Absolutely.
everybody, you can join me here every single Tuesday. The Fierce and Fabulous Talk Show goes out every single Tuesday here in the UK at 7 p.m. and bringing you amazing women, inspirational women, talented women, but also ordinary and very humble women that we can all connect with and be inspired by. So we'll see you all back here next week for the Fierce and Fabulous Talk Show. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.